the Sigmoid Curve, and I'm going to teach it to you for just a moment. This is straight out of one of our blogs. We blog every week. We post a new blog every month. There's a newsletter. You should definitely subscribe to that because, again, your service only lasts 6 months. You need to be in this groove of us continuously updating you with current information and touching all the different points of your retirement expectations in life. You see success going up the side and time going out the other way. And your career is this, I guess we'll call it purple line, and that you have an introduction, you have a growth, you have a maturity of your career, and then you have that decline or that retirement, we'll call it in this case. And that's your path. And for most of you, you are about where our white dot is on this line, or even above that. You are in that peaking out of your career. Hence, we're talking about retirement because it's not that far in the distance that you're going to begin that downward decline. And that inflection point, that strategic inflection point, is the time in which you begin to recreate yourself in this sigmoid curve idea. And the principle being, you've had success in your career path and you've continued to move up and you've gotten better and better and better at what you do. This next phase is not going to be about success. Here comes my word. It's going to be about significance. And while your career has been significant as well, this next pass, it's all significance. The success is going to be almost impossible to measure throughout retirement from the sense of a paycheck or the way you have measured success in your career of a paycheck, an acceleration in your position, step and grade increase, all those elements that have been success. Now in retirement, significance is going to be how can you impact your culture? How do you engage your grandchildren? How do you support the community? And all those things are less tangible than the paycheck you've been getting for the last 30 years. So that new idea, it's in you now. You've got some thoughts, but those thoughts need to begin to take root and begin even in action in your life now versus waiting until after you retire. The most successful retirees are not saying, well, when I retire, I'll then start doing. No, that doesn't work. The most successful people start a little something now. I realize you can't put 20 hours a week into it, but you could put 2 hours a week into whatever it is that you're doing, or recognize 2 hours you are spending doing something as, hey, I want to grow this when I go into retirement because this is something that is significant that I'm bringing to the table. This principle comes from a book. So I'm going to recommend some reading. And I realize everybody doesn't like to read. In fact, we surveyed our last online training. Watch out, it was an online training with like 300 people in it. And hardly any of them actually read. They all get their information from online, which is what we were doing with that crowd. But just in case some of you are readers, I've got a few resources to help. So the Sigmoid Curve is in this book called Halftime by Bob Buford. I recommend that. And if you don't get a chance to write this down, you're not where you can take notes. On our website, we have a resources page. Is that what it's called, Eric? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Do you know if that's where Halftime is located?
Yeah, Halftime is on our main web page. I'm popping this into the chat right now. There we go. So we also have, I guess, yeah, so May was Halftime. And then June is the Retirement Boom.
And I'll reference, since you pulled that one up, I know we just went out of sequence a little bit, but that's okay. The Retirement Boom, I'm holding this book too, is where let me differentiate the two. Halftime is the book around, recreating yourself, and you need to do that and the psychology behind that. The Retirement Boom gets into some very practical things you can do with your time. So if you haven't defined what you might do, they talk about how you can get on nonprofit boards, vocational to another job potential, how you go about things, about living your life meaningfully in very specific actionable steps. So I like the Retirement Boom because of its practical nature, even giving you websites to go to get more information about not the book writers, but about whatever they're talking about out there in the space of how you can spend your time. So the last book I'm going to recommend, it's called The New Retirementality by Mitch Anthony. Yes, he makes up words like retirementality. This book is unique in that he, we're all involved, we're all intently interested in return on investment. So I own two companies. I'm a CPA. I've got a financial planning firm as well. So I'm in that space all the time where return on investment, what does that look like? But what he argues for, and I think my 16 years experience in the marketplace would prove out, I would agree with him, that the real issue is not return on investment, although that is important. The more important issue is return on life. And how do I get return on life in the way I set up my finances, the way I spend my time? And he spends a fair amount of this book trying to talk you out of retirement. So if you are just on the fence, this is a great read to make sure that you have to fight. If you were sitting at the table with Mitch Anthony, you'd have to work diligently to tell him it makes sense for you to retire. And I think that's a good push and pull conversation that he has in this book. And when you finish it, you'd be like, yes, I know I want to retire at this point because this is what I'm going to do with my life. Or no way, I'm nowhere near retirement because I don't pass the muster of the press that he made. So a little different resource, but a good one. So again, our goal is to give you more than just the information we gave you, give a whole lot more. So I guess I will say this again. I realize everybody doesn't necessarily share in this kind of setting, but hopefully what we just did will force your hand into thinking who you're going to be when you quit working. You need to think through that, create that plan of that non-financial aspect. Again, most of what we do is around the money and the finances. This session is building that out. So, and then when you come up with what you might do, a lot of times we hear, well, I'm going to take care of my body in retirement. I'm going to work out. Well, that might take an hour or 2 hours a day at most. I'm going to spend time with my grandchildren. Well, they've got school, so you won't get those hours with them. I'm going to be involved more in my church. Well, that could be 4 or 5 hours a week maybe. But I'm showing you here's your whole life outside of sleeping. And in retirement, that's a lot of time on the screen. If you look Sunday through Saturday, we assume 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. You can put a nap time in there at 2 o'clock, right? Whatever you need to do. But how will you fill your time to make this work? I was recently with a federal retiree in just north of Jacksonville. She lives on Amelia Island at the beach, and she wakes up every morning, takes her dog, walks on the beach. Tuesday, she's got this event. She helps at the soup kitchen on these 2 days, and she has some illness, some cancer. So every once in a while, she can't do anything for that day. She sits and reads and then recovers. And then every evening at 7 o'clock at night or whatever, she walks her dog again on the beach, and she has a very rich life with her friends in the community, and then serving some periodically, and that fills her day sufficiently. And I asked her, I recently read a book that said, well, the guy said our greatest enemy, and it was a spiritual book. Our greatest enemy of spirituality is hurriedness, and we must fight to get rid of hurriedness from our life so that we can be more spiritual beings. Was what the book was talking through. And I mentioned that to her. She said, that's so true. I don't realize it because I'm in the middle of my work and the busyness of life. To get away from that and to rest and to not be in as big a hurry is a big deal for retirees. So you don't have to fill every time on this block, every block on this sheet, but you want to fill enough time so that you have, again, fulfillment in life.